Man, the myth, the legend, Brian Baldinger joins us here on the second day of the legal tampering period. Baldy, good morning. It's been far too long. And yes, we quite haven't gotten over the Super Bowl yet as we're watching the Niners make some loser. How you been, Baldy, man? How's the offseason treating you so far?
Joe, I'm real good. Like everybody else, waiting for the start of the new year. Was on yesterday, kind of tracking some of these free agent signings and watching the money fly out the door and trying to figure out how some teams just continually get creative with their cap and are able to sign all these guys, and some teams just are on the sideline, just can't figure any of that out. So it's like the have and have-nots when it goes to shopping in free agency.
No doubt. Niners, they make some moves yesterday, obviously, Baldy. Let's start with Leonard Floyd. He's been around the league for a while now. Buffalo, his last stop. Won a Super Bowl with the Rams. Started off his career with the Chicago Bears. Let's start with him. What type of defensive end are the 49ers getting with Leonard Floyd here, Baldy?
Oh, I think the quality. I mean, it's a big upgrade over Cleveland Farrell and Chase Young. And, it's been a while since they had a guy, that could really, win one-on-ones and, keep the quarterback kind of hurried and affect the quarterback. I mean, Leonard's, he's a rangy guy. He's won in the postseason. He's a guy that you got to pay attention to. So I think it's a big upgrade over what they put out there on the field a year ago.
We'll get to Yetur Gross-Matos in a second. What about losing Eric Armstead? How big of a loss is that?
I think it's big. It's big. But they paid Javon Kinlaw.
Javon Hargrave.
They lost Javon. I mean, when they signed Javon last year and they gave him the type of money, I mean, he was the first signing in free agency a year ago. I didn't think they were going to be able to pay everybody. And so you have to make those sacrifices. Eric's been a big part of that program. On every level. I mean, just a person on the field, off the field, worker, and a guy that has lined up and played a lot of snaps for him. But it's a loss, but you can find defensive tackles. I think it's a pretty good draft for them. I mean, sometimes you just got to find guys that aren't in the first round and develop them. And, that's part of what coaching is all about.
Going back to Leonard Floyd here, a lot of people are asking about the run game. How is he against the run? How does he hold up against the run? Is he a three-down defensive end, Baldy? Does he play the run well? Tell us about him. But
he's got length. He's got length and range and knows how to, play off blocks. And you're not going to win a championship like he did with the Rams if you can't do a lot of those things. You can't get that far, into the postseason and not get exposed if you're not good at that. I think he's been a every down player since he got in the league. He's been really consistent. You can look at the sack numbers. They say one story, but you're not rushing the passer unless you're able to get in a position to rush the passer. So I think he's like I said, I think he's an upgrade on every level over what they put on the field a year ago.
It's got to make you happy, Shasky. It's got to make Niner fans happy to hear that from Baldy.
Yeah, no doubt. What about Gross-Matos? I don't know much about this guy for Carolina that they signed to a 2-year deal. Give us a little breakdown on him.
Well, I mean, look, he was part of the draft when Matt Rule was the head coach of Carolina coming out of Penn State. And then they had a draft where it was just all defensive players. And I don't know if he's ever, Brian Burns has been there. He's been sort of the guy. Derek Brown has been the guy. I think he was a second-round pick coming out of Penn State. He's been a rotational player at Carolina. And, nobody pays attention to the Carolina Panthers. So nobody really has studied him very hard, but he's got length. He plays hard. He's been in this league now for 4 years. So I think he's at this stage. I think he's a rotational player that can give you 20 to 30 snaps, and if he's got to start, he's capable of doing that. But he's going to give you 20, 30 snaps a game right now, and that's what they need. They need to upgrade the rotation over what they had a year ago.
So do you think they're done at the end, or do you think that they're going to add – because there was a lot of rumors about Joey Bosa, for example, and I don't even know what it would look like with Joey Bosa, but do you think they're done then? I mean, just your guess on this at the end?
Well, they started yesterday, or they started this week, negative cap money. So, look, getting rid of Javon Kinlaw and Eric Armstead, all those players are going to save him some money, even Sam Darnold. So, you're going to recoup some money, but I would say that nothing is off the table. Nothing is off the table for John Lynch right now. And if it is Joey Bosa, It doesn't look like they're going to move on from him with the Chargers. I think you got to at least have the conversation. I don't know if he shares the same agent as Nick or not.
Right.
Don't really know. But you got to at least have the conversation. Is it affordable? Does it make sense? He's had a lot more injuries than Nick has. He's missed a lot of time with a variety of injuries. You got to factor in all of that. He's older than Nick, but you have to have the conversation. I don't care, Khalil Mack, all of them, right. Because they're going to win with their front four on defense. Defensively, that's where they're going to put their money. That's where they have been putting their money. And I would say that if there's a way that they can fit one of these players in, then they're going to find a way.
Brian Baldinger here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game. Baldy, Shaska and I were just having a conversation about the Niners offense. And, they got some high cap figures here. We're not saying trade Debo, trade Kittle, although I think, I wouldn't be surprised if Lynch entertained those type of phone calls. I don't think they need to trade anybody. They averaged 29 points a game last year. Their offense was dynamic. However, we saw the Super Bowl. We saw the lack of vertical passing game here. Is that the one area the Niners need to clean up moving forward here, especially in these big games, is getting the downfield passing game going? Because it just seemed like it lacked at times, especially in that Super Bowl.
Well, you go back to the final play of the game in overtime. You've got Brandon Ayuk wide open in the end zone. The L'Jarius Sneed was face planted. And, Brock Purdy doesn't have any time to throw it. And they blow the protection. It always starts up front if you want to have a downtown vertical passing game. You can only play action pass from so many different parts of the field. You can't do it from inside your 20-yard line very well. So, I think if you can upgrade up front, you got to upgrade up front to give your quarterback more time to be able to hold the ball to get those throws down the field. I think speed is always a factor when you're looking at a Shanahan offense, and they really don't put a lot out there right now, speed-wise. So I think that they could still use somebody that has that type of element. Jawan Jennings isn't going to provide that type of element, and Debo isn't really that type of player. So, I think when you look at him in Cleveland and Atlanta, some of the places he's been, he's had more speed at that position than what they have. Now, I know Danny Gray was drafted and he was a non-factor, and that's what he was supposed to bring to this offense. But I would say that that's still an area that they could upgrade at that position right now.
Knowing this offense, knowing Brock Purdy, take away offensive line, what kind of playmakers are you pairing up for Brock Purdy in this offense? Like, what are the traits you're looking for in a receiver or a tight end?
Well, guys that can win one-on-ones, whether it's just speed or route running. You're looking for it just so that Brock Purdy, in whatever progression he's in, whatever the play call, whatever the formation, has a go-to place to go quicker with the ball. And where they can win quickly against man coverage, the way Kansas City played, for probably the last 3 quarters of that Super Bowl. And so that's what you're looking for. You're looking at guys that can separate quickly. And they're in every round of every draft. You just got to find them. But or in free agency, it's not a big deal. I wouldn't spend any money in free agency on wide receivers. There's no need to. They're in every draft. But that's what I'm looking for, a guy that can win quickly for Brock. Make it just that much easier for him to get the ball to him.
Yeah, I was just mentioning the Wes Welker type, a Julian Edelman type, somebody short area quickness, get in and out your routes, boom, little dump offs here and there. Need that. The Niners haven't had that in forever. I know they tried a bunch of guys, Baldy, like Trent Taylor.
They have.
River Craycraft, Richie James Jr. Just hasn't worked out for no reason.
No, but I think that's still a position of need.
Yep.
And I think it's still a position you can look for. Those guys that can just win in the slot and can just win, run all those option routes. Now, they've got McCaffrey, he runs a lot of those. And so they kind of double down when he's out there on those type of routes, whether he's in motion or out of the backfield. But a guy that can just be a pure slot player.
Yep.
If you remember, Wes Welker was drafted by the Dolphins, and the Patriots signed him in free agency, and his career just took off, And then it was Edelman. They've always had Amendola. Right. They always had that type of guy in that offense where you could just throw all those option routes underneath. And if you had McCaffrey on one side and you had somebody like that on the other side, I think your offense could be that much more dynamic.
Yeah, I remember Brandon Stokely with the Colts, Peyton Manning in that slot. Yeah, no going deep here on that one here. Baldy, just looking at the 49ers, there was something I was about to ask you. You're talking there about the wide receiver spot or whatnot. There was something I was going to ask you, Shasky. Take over. I got to rethink this question.
Okay.
I swear to God, I was going to say something that was on the tip of my tongue. You started talking about slot receivers. I got sidetracked.
Well, I just look at how the Chiefs have dramatically changed their roster for a variety of reasons the last couple of years. And the Niners essentially ran it back last year into this year, and then they lost in overtime to Patrick Mahomes. If you're looking at this bad boy and moving forward and knowing how volatile the NFL is this a tinker away, continually tinkering, or are you trying to make some big changes here for the 49ers if you were running things?
I don't know how many big changes you can make, Joe. They're right up against the cap. They're paying, 8 of the top players at their positions in the business as it is. Somehow they're, we all know what their names are. So, you're already doing that. I think it's just a question of, how much better, honestly, can Brock Purdy get? Can he get significantly better? He's still obviously a very young player. But, every young player feels like they can improve in whatever way it is, in any sport. You're always looking to improve. And so I think they get better as Brock Purdy gets better and understands the offense even better, or they add new wrinkles to the offense, whatever it might be. I think you're always trying to do that. But sometimes it's just a maturity factor at a key position that makes you that much better, that gets you over the hump. I don't know if it's a player, although I always believe that when you, for example, like the Houston Texans turned their year around in 1 year, but they had an incredible draft, offense, defense, rookie of the year. They had incredible production in free agency. Now, they had a lot of money to spend, and they were at the bottom to begin with. When you're at the top, I think, like the Golden State Warriors trying to run it back when they did. You're not really going to change the roster that much, but you got to be a better postseason team, well, whatever that is. Gamble more fourth down attempts, more gambles because you think your defense can withstand the aftershock if it doesn't work. I think those are the kind of things you're looking at.
Baldy, I got my question. I wanted to ask you this because we're trying to figure this out. And now it's like, you know what? We got Baldy coming out today. He may know who this guy is. Nick Sorensen, the new DC for the 49ers. We know Brandon Staley and what he does and what he brought to the table with the Chargers. And, of course, he's now going to be with the 49ers helping out in some capacity here. But who the heck is Nick Sorensen? We understand he was a player. We don't know what type of coach he is, Baldy. You know anything about Nick Sorensen?
I don't know what he's going to be. He's never called plays before, and that's always a big step up. I thought things would go south with Coach Wilkes the way they did. Just some of the things. I just didn't think he was a great blitzer. I didn't think he had great design. I didn't think he had great disguise in his blitzes. And I thought Patrick Mahomes ripped him apart the way the Minnesota Vikings did at the end of the first half in that loss to the Vikings. So I think what you're looking for, like Spags still catches you completely off guard with what he does and how he does it and where they come from. And I think you can have a philosophy, you can have a game plan week to week. The Rams are obviously significantly different than the Eagles. Whatever. You can do all those things during the week. What can you do during the game? And I think that's really, and not everybody can do it. Brian Flores is really good at what he does and how he does it. And it showed in Minnesota this year. So I want to give Nick a chance because I can't really tell you what he's going to do yet because he hasn't had a chance to do it.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out what type of coach he is here. Rah-rah guy? Is he animated? As a player, I don't remember much of him as a player. And now other people, he had a long career. But as a coach, we're just like, whoa, Nick Sorensen, DB coach, what does he do? We understand he never called plays, but just who the hell is Nick Sorensen? The fans want to know who he is. We want to know who he is. We haven't seen him yet at a presser or nothing.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these guys, so for example, I'm friends with Jeff Ulbrich, who's the defense coordinator of the Jets. And, he's there with Robert Saleh and, former player and kind of bounce around. And I remember, just an example, I remember the Jets were playing the Eagles, and the Jets were minus their top 3 corners. All right? There's, Sauce is out. I mean, the top 3 corners are out. Yep. And he comes up to me before the game. He's like, what would you do today, Baldy? I'm like, I probably wouldn't play a lot of press man against A.J. Brown. I mean, that's kind of where I would start, Jeff. But the point, and then they went in the game. And, they get 4 takeaways that day, and the corners never got exposed. but they took the ball away. And so if you're always looking to tinker. Like I guess the point of the story is you're always looking to tinker.
Right
up until kickoff.
Right.
With what you think you might be able to do because you're shorthanded, who you're playing, the weather, the conditions. Like you got to always be thinking about, and not where you put more pressure on your players, but putting the pressure on yourself. Like, what are we going to do today to win this game, figure this thing out? Okay, I mean, whatever the situation, we got Mahomes. Like, what are we going to do to keep this guy under wraps? And so that's to me is when we're looking at Nick right here as a player, he's been in those meetings and he's been on the field and he's been on the sidelines as a player, and the type of adjustments.
Right.
Because that word gets thrown out there, but what are they? What are the adjustments? What are you willing to do? And sometimes you just have to entrust your players in doing some of those things. That's what Spags did with his middle linebacker at halftime of the game with the 49ers when they made some changes. And do you think you can do that? Can we do this? Can we still get to Brock Purdy and still hold up doing this? So those are things that I think a good coach and a guy that has played has some of the ability to do.
All right, so I'm looking around the NFC, just specifically the NFC. Aaron Jones to the Vikings after getting released. Josh Jacobs to the Packers. Kirk Cousins to the Falcons. Saquon to the Eagles, which I think is a great pickup for them. What's the team that is the biggest impact in day one of free agency that the Niners should fear? What move do you think was the biggest one that is one that's going to change maybe the hierarchy of the NFC?
Well, I think Saquon is going to make a difference in Philly. I don't think he's never played behind an offensive line. I think the addition of Saquon and Kellen Moore, they just were in a situation last year where they were outmanned from a coaching standpoint. Coordinators, they lost both. It made a difference. The players talked about losing, certain coaches last year. So I think Kellen Moore will figure out ways to run the ball. Saquon can be an every down player. He's never going to see holes like he's going to see this year. Like we might see the best of Saquon this year. Now he's got to stay healthy and all that kind of stuff. But I know the way he works and the way he prepares. But this could be literally a breakout year for Saquon. So I would say Kellen Moore and Saquon, they had drafted the replacement of Jason Kelce 2 years ago in Cam Jurgens. He'll be the new center. I've already talked to guys on the offensive line about what they want at right guard, which might be different than what they had last year, which could make them more powerful. We'll see if this comes true in the draft. But I would say Philadelphia is always going to try to do everything it can with Howie Roseman to compete. And so that'd be the one team I would look at right now.
I love Saquon with the Eagles. That's a scary, scary offense, man. You're right, Baldy. It's not going to see 8 in the box, 9 in the box, good offensive line, receivers on the outside. Saquon may have a huge, huge year here. All right, free agency continues to roll around. Jacobs goes to the Packers. Aaron Jones goes to Minnesota. I was a little surprised by Sam Darnold getting $10 million to the Minnesota Vikings. What move surprised you yesterday, Baldy, around the league?
I think it was just the all the running backs that went and how DeAndre Swift was maybe the first guy off the board, but Tony Pollard leaving Dallas and Swift going to Chicago and Josh Jacobs going to Green Bay, and as they release Aaron Jones, who then signs to Minnesota. So just the number of running backs. Antonio Gibson going to New England,
right?
Gus Edwards going to the Chargers. Austin Eckler going to Washington. With reuniting with Anthony Lynn, who was his running back coach with the Chargers. I think just the number of running backs, when we thought maybe that market was just dead and they'll just go find Keaton Mitchell at East Carolina, or go find Isaiah Pacheco at Rutgers when those guys are out there every year. Like I thought that's the direction the running backs was going to go, and it didn't.
Right.
These guys got, Josh Jacobs got paid to go to the Green Bay Packers. He is only 25 years old. He did lead the league in rushing.
Right.
So I was happy for the running backs that all got a chance to get paid, to move, and to maybe, earn their worth the way they all believe that they have or can.
No doubt, no doubt. Should be a fascinating offseason. The draft's still coming up. We still got more moves.
So one other thing I'd say, Bonte, is we saw very little top-flight wide receivers move. And that's just because when you don't see movement at a position, like very few offensive tackles change teams.
Right.
Like all it's saying is this is a deep draft at those positions.
Yeah.
And we know that. Tackle is the best draft we've seen in years. You can get them in probably, there's going to be 12 guys at tackle gone in the first 2 rounds. So at least 12. So, it's a deep draft and wide receivers. So, like those positions, teams are sitting back going, we're going to get one of these rookies and we're going to get them up to speed quickly. That's what yesterday told me.
Baldy, I know this is going to sound insane. I'm watching Justin Jefferson highlights right now. What are the chances that guy gets traded? I would love him on my team. He's ridiculous.
He is. He's a magician, man. I've gotten to know Justin pretty good. I always say this about him, and there's not many players I could say this about. He has a plan to get open, and he has a plan after he catches the ball. Like that guy after the catch is ridiculous. And so I don't know if he can get traded. They've got salary cap issues. They've got Jordan Addison. They've got TJ. They've got some guys there. But I'd be shocked if a guy that has been that dominant from day one gets moved. I know they got to figure out the contract and all that stuff, but that's what teams got to do. You got to get creative. You can't let a guy of that magnitude that can beat any coverage, man, bracket, zone, you name it. That guy has a plan to win.
Wow, Justin Jefferson, special.
And unfortunately, he's got Sam Darnold throwing him the ball.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. Sam Darnold got $10 million, man. What a life. What a life. Baldy.
Sometimes you just go get coached by Kyle and you just, you should give him a 10% cut.
Right. No, there should definitely be some points.
Baldy, I know we were up against it. Carson Wentz outplayed him in week 17, and no one wants Carson Wentz. I just don't get it. I don't get the Darnold thing.
Yeah, well, look, not only, Joe Douglas drafted Carson Wentz in Philadelphia. Huh. And, he's there in New York. He's like, I'll take Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, right.
He's just, it's just a coaching reclamation project at this point.
No doubt about that.
You're
Baldy,
the best,
always
bud.
good to hear your voice. Saw you yesterday with the pocket square looking dapper on NFL Network, man. Keep up the great work, Baldy.
Okay, guys, you bet. Anytime.
See ya.
Brian Baldinger here on the morning, also 95.7 The Game.